Oh. Hope that's not too much of a shock. Did you ever have a friend when you were growing up that would get really angry out of nowhere and it was hilarious? I had one of those friends. John was one of those friends. And did you ever have one of those friends when you were growing up that would invite you over to play a video game and then never tell you about it and keep beating you at it? I had one of those friends. Steve was one of those friends. In high school, the three of us got together on a Friday afternoon, and I think you can tell what was gonna happen. We'd always go over to Steve's place, he'd always get us to play a video game, he'd never let us win, and he'd love it. I'm talking about a guy that once successfully played an entire game of Altered Beast with me while hugging the right side of the screen the entire time, while successfully collecting 100% of the Altered Beast orbs. You know, the things that change you into the Altered Beast. I don't know if like everybody... Altered Beast is popular, right? People know. I don't think I need to explain Altered Beast. This Friday afternoon, Steve decides to pick out Soul Calibur 2. That's his joke. He's pulling the Soul Calibur 2 joke. I think to myself, these are interesting jokes. You can button mash to victory in this game. Steve's taking us on, kicking our butts, but then John sees this one character, Kilk, I think? Kulk? In? Shulk? Kulk? Kilk. Anyway, he's got this bow staff, right? And John is like obsessed with bow staffs at this point of his life for some reason. He used to make like stick figure animations. I remember this. He'd send them to me on MSN, and to be this guy like with a bow staff, just like wailing on a bunch of people. Like, I think it was pretty easy to tell what he really thought about the bow staff. If there was like one point in animation whenever he like twirls it and deflects a whole bunch of bullets and like poses, and there's just like bow staff was written in the sky. He starts button mashing with the bow staff and stuff. He really believes in this bow staff. It was like some sort of primal look in his eyes whenever he was staring at the screen, studying each one of his button movements. You see, he was actually coming pretty close to beating Steve, which was amazing. At this point, I was actually starting to root for John. I was like, believe in the bow staff. But Steve won. Ultimately, he still takes the victory, but John asks to borrow the game. He's gonna train up for a week. I'll see you next Friday, John said to Steve. Me and my bow staff. We'll see you next Friday. And he's like walking away and like picks up one of Steve's dad's umbrellas and starts like twirling it and does like a cool trick. I think he actually dropped it and broke the handle. You can see John staring down Steve at the school halls during the week. He's taking this really seriously. You see, nobody really beats Steve here. This is Steve's go-to joke. He doesn't give this up. If Steve loses, joke's over. I don't know if John really knew that or if he was just not giving it up. He's taking it so seriously that he stops showing up to school. He's actually taking time off school to train up on Soul Calibur to beat Steve. That's how determined this guy is. I saw the primal look in the guy's eyes. He knew that the bow staff truly would take him to victory. So it's Friday afternoon. We haven't seen John in a few days. John, of course, didn't go to school that day, so he shows up late. We're all just watching him as he comes into the door, right? It looked as if a whole month had passed. Like, you know, it looked like that, but like, you know, it also kind of smelled like that too. And I remember like one of us even brought it up. They were like, "Hey, John, like, did you skip shower today?" And I remember his response. He just holds up his hands like he's some sort of magician, staring at Steve when he says it too. And he's like, "I gave up brushing my teeth so I could play more Soul Calibur." That's too determined. Alright, John, if you lose, stakes are way too high. So they face off one-on-one in Steve's room. Kulk versus I don't know what Steve picked. John versus Steve. Bow staff versus actual skill. John wins. I'm overlooking at Steve, and you can tell by his face, he's just done. I'm looking over at John, and he's just like, "Thank you, bow staff." Being all zen and stuff. It turns out he just needed to skip school and stop brushing his teeth. But that training that he did, and all that determination, it paid off. It was climactic. It was cathartic. It was not over yet. A few weeks passed by and we're all on a road trip up to the next town to watch a Star Wars with Steve's mom as the driver. The Star Wars is all sold out, so she's like, "Alright boys, you all have fun at the arcade while I figure this out." We're all like, "Oh, okay, yeah." This is kind of a big deal. We're never really around an arcade, so We're walking around there. We only got like enough change for maybe like 1 or 2 games in the arcade. But what do we see? But Soul Calibur 1. New game, new joke. We gather up all the change we got and Steve and John have their rematch. And again, John wins. But he's not so humble about it this time. He's actually, in fact, a little annoying. But I continue to watch John anyway. Steve walks away. John's going through a little bit of solo play. He's playing against the computer here. You see, he can ride out that little bit of change as long as he doesn't lose. He's on a bit of a winning streak, and then all of a sudden this new guy comes in. And I see the look on John's face. He's all worried. He's like, who's this guy? It's 2005. It's Star Wars 3 that we're gonna go see, right? It's 2005. The arcade is like empty. It's like 2 months away from being completely shut down. Who is this guy that also likes Soul Calibur 1? John's like, oh no. My victory streak with the bow staff is in jeopardy. I saw the primal look in his eyes come back. And I looked over at his opponent. He had a similar look too. He was really close to the screen, you know? Just kind of like... I was like, wait a minute, I recognize this guy. You see, I've been at this town 2 towns over. It's got a nice Walmart, a good theater, an arcade, and a music store. And I saw this guy at the music store before reading CDs like this. The guy must have been like legally blind. I look over at John, he doesn't even notice. He's just like ready to go. He's still riding the change off that 1 round, right? So I'm thinking, okay, if this guy chose Soul Calibur and went to play against this stranger, he must be a master at the game despite his vision problems. John and him play around. Is he gonna lose? No. He destroys the guy. The guy with the vision problem turns out to not be very good at the video game. And like he's like so bad at it that like he might like maybe he was impaired, maybe there was others, like maybe he was impaired in other ways. I don't know. But what I do know is the guy was well known in the area because this empty arcade was starting to fill up with people. They're looking at him. I guess the guy's name was Andrew, right? And they're all like, hey Andrew, yeah, go Andrew. You go, man, you go. John's there, like, still not breaking his vision, realizing the stakes are rising. Every victory that he's picking up, the crowd is getting bigger. It means more to him now. So I'm just like, I'm not gonna tell John. Screw him, this joke's like 3 weeks old at this point. John, I don't know how long this went on for. It must have been at least 10, 15 minutes. John's kicking his butt with the bow staff. The guy just keeps putting in more quarters. More and more people come by. They're like, Andy, go Andy, you got it Andy, you got this. Steve shows back up, he sees the huge crowd. More and more people start showing up, they're all cheering, Andy, Andy. And Steve and I, we start cheering for Andy at this point. We're like, yeah, Andy, go, Andy. And before you know it, we have caused a scene. John's still like button mashing, going nuts at the game. And it must have been the sound of our voice that broke his concentration, because he looked over at that point, and we could just see him slowly stop pressing the buttons and just kind of looking down in shame. Everybody starts cheering louder and louder. Andy, yeah, you got him, go, go. Meanwhile, John is done. He's not pressing buttons anymore. In fact, he's glaring at Steve and I. He's like, what did you do? You knew. I was like, yes. So of course Andrew wins and the place erupts. Everybody's cheering, they're hooting, jumping up and down. This is probably the most excitement that arcade has seen in years. but it was not appreciated, as one of the arcade guys just comes up to us amongst it all and puts his hand on Sean's shoulder. He's like, you guys gotta leave. We're just like, KB. That's the end of the story. That's the end. We ended up seeing like Dirk Gently's Guide to the Galaxy or something instead of Star Wars. Whatever. I don't even know if anything important happened to them.